So as we look at all the pieces we've got, one thing starts to become apparent. We've got a top and bottom piece, and they are relatively similar in size, similar in width, and similar in length. In this case, approximately 10 inches by 6 inches. And then we've got the other 4 pieces, which make up the sides. The sides are 3.5 inches in width, and we've got 2 that are 10 and 2 that are 5.5. So if we took those 2 pieces and kind of put them end to end, we get an idea for what that one piece would look like because it needs to be wider, and then what another piece would look like if it was narrower. In this case, we've got 10 and 10, that's 20. 5 is 25.5, plus another 5.5 gets us to 31 inches. So 31 linear inches for those 4 pieces. In this case, approximately 20 inches, linear inches. Now we need to figure out how to cut these pieces from a larger piece. All right. So I'm going to move those out of the way, and I'm going to get another piece of wood. So we have this large piece of wood. It's 10 inches by 8 feet long, and we want to find out how many pieces for this project we can make out of this one piece. Or rather, how many projects, full projects, we could make out of this one piece. All right. So to do that, we're going to lay out some lines, and those lines will correspond to the sizes of all the pieces we need. And in the end, we want to determine A, how many pieces, or rather how many projects we can make out of this one piece, and B, how much waste there's going to be. Right? We want to minimize the waste whenever possible. Right? So let's do that. Let's mark that out. All right, so I've marked this out, and you can see there's all sorts of markings all the way along the length of it. We've got all sorts of markings. I'm going to kind of walk you through what we've done here. Right? So first thing we're going to look at is from one end, right, we just wanted to measure kind of how large the piece we have. And if you look towards the middle here, you can see that I've got a mark here that corresponds to a 48-inch mark. So that means from this mark to the end of the board down there, I've got 48 inches. And again, I've got 48 inches from this mark to the end of the board in that direction. Right? In total, we've got just more than 8 feet. And then over here, I've made note of the fact that we've got a board that's 10 inches wide. So in this direction, this line kind of corresponds to the fact that we've got a board that's 10 inches. As I looked at this, I started to measure from one end. All right, so the first thing I've done is I've kind of marked out a line from the edge closest to me, 3.5 inches. So this line is 3.5 inches, and then again a line that's 6 inches from the opposite edge. So I know this is 6 inches. I know this is 3.5. I've got this gap that's in the middle, which is good because this piece has a unjointed edge here and obviously a unjointed edge on the opposite side. So those edges will need to be cleaned up. From moving forward from having the width established and a 6-inch piece, which would obviously correspond to my top, I then started marking out lengths. So here I need a top piece, approximately 10 inches. I've marked it. I've got a bottom piece. This is a little 2 next to it. We'll talk about that in a second. Mark that at 10 inches. Top piece, 10 inches. And here you can see again it's 10 by 6 by 1. Now my piece for my project says it's 10 1/4 by 6 1/4. And there's an added 1/4 of an inch for that piece. And at this point we can just refer to the 10 by 6 by 1, knowing that we're going to add a little bit in the future. So we've got a top, we've got a bottom, there's actually 2 bottoms there, and then another top. And then on the opposite side, I've got a long side, LS, short for long side, 3.5 inches in width and 10 inches long, my 10-inch mark. Another 10-inch mark here, second long side, and a short side and a short side. So from this line, or rather from this line, and really kind of from this large line that runs all the way across, I've got length for 4 sides, right? Long side, short side, and short side, and I've got length for a top, 2 bottoms, and a top. And all of that happens in 33 linear inches. All right. Moving to the opposite end of the board, if I measure to this line here, I've got another 33 linear inches. So essentially from either end of our long board, I've got stock for one box project and an extra top and bottom. So then I can kind of look at this middle section. So we go from a line I've got here, right, to a line I've got here, and from one end I've got 33 inches, that's one box project plus an extra top and bottom, and from this line here, again, one box project with an extra top and bottom. So I've got an additional amount here, looks like 31 inches, linear inches, and in that 31 linear inches, I can make whatever pieces I need. Since I've got two tops and two bottoms on each end of the piece of large piece of wood, I then need to take my middle section and I need to divide my middle section into smaller pieces. So once again, I've measured out a long side, a short side, and a short side, 10 inches, 10 inches, 5.5, 5.5. All right. And then if I measure my 3-inch distance from the edge, so 3.5 inches from this edge to the line and this edge to the line, it essentially doubles what I've got. So I've got a long side here, a long side here, short side, and a short side. All right. What I end up with after looking at utilizing the entire board is 4 tops, 4 bottoms, 8 long sides, 8 short sides, which would equal the number of pieces I need to make 4 box projects. Right, so I can make 4 boxes out of this one piece of stock. Okay, I want to make a quick note about the bottom piece. Notice I got two bottoms marked out here. You can see that on the thickness of this board, I've got pieces that are marked out about half each. That would be just less than a ½ inch per piece. The bottom piece fits into that that groove rather, and it is a 1/4 inch groove. So we need 2 pieces that are 1/4 inch. We are going to use a technique called resawing. We're going to resaw that larger piece into 2 pieces and then plane them down to a 1/4 inch. Therein lies our 2 bottoms per one overall shape.